Thank you, Raylan, and thanks everybody for the presenters and for everyone who's attended for your engagement. I know we have some questions, so I want to jump to them. Um, Sorry to hear that the chat is disabled. Feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions. The first question we have from a pre-submitted question from one of our attendees is whether best practices for response, and so Jenna, I think this goes to you, best practices for response to disinformation, do they vary based on whether a threat targets groups or organizations versus individuals?
That's a great question. I think it varies more on whether the offline impact is severe or not. So that could apply to both groups and individuals, I think. So I think it kind of depends, which is an annoying response, but either way, thinking most about how it could turn into an offline impact.
Yeah. So the rubric around offline impact is more important than the individual or organization.
I
That's
think
great.
that's right.
We have one for David. The question here is, do you recommend that individuals use tools to identify if something is AI generated?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, the status of the science on this is so far extremely tentative. It is easy to fool the systems that are designed to identify if the content is fake. At the same time, there are tools that do exist. To the extent that you have access to them and to the extent that you have the ability to do it, certainly feel free. But I think everyone just needs to take a moment and recognize with humility technologically, we've seen in the lab that some systems that have been designed to generate content and then identify their own content can't identify their own content. And so the more likely that it's been generated using one of the larger platforms, yes, the more likely that it's going to be able to be subsequently identified by that platform. But the status of what we'd call watermarking in the industry, each AI generated image, for instance, or a movie having something that can be imperceptibly seen by other computers and read, that is not universal. It cannot be relied upon. And so still best judgment is probably the best tool. And then for everything that you've heard elsewhere on this discussion, limiting the spread is about as good as we can get right now with so little time before Election Day.
Thank you. We have another question about and I think this will go to Melissa in particular, but maybe also Raylan to chime in, that if people are connecting with disinformation at an emotional or a sort of visceral level, does that make them less likely to be swayed with being presented with the true facts because they've already had a kind of a gut emotional reaction? If that's true, what do? Do you build a new emotional connection with more emotional content, or are there other ways of helping to correct the record and get the right information out when people have already seen something that was emotionally impactful?
I think going to trusted messengers is incredibly important, and we know that especially around election disinformation, our best trusted messengers are our local election officials.
Yeah, and I'll hop in to say that whenever we're talking about, oh, so sorry about that. Whenever folks are wondering, like, how do we combat a very emotional reaction to disinformation? Is it possible to re-sway them? The answer is yes. And as Melissa said, it really relies on that trusted messenger to be able to identify, hey, this post just tried to trigger your emotions. And having a follow-up conversation with someone saying, hey, they tried to take advantage of your feelings to share this harmful information to you. And folks react very positively to that. So we have had quite a few of our activists who've had conversations like this with their loved ones come in and say, yes, now that you've shown me these different tactics that are being used and I've looked more into this news source, I feel taken advantage of and I don't trust them anymore. And I'm telling my friends. So it is very possible and not a lost cause at all if someone has already had that very strong emotional reaction to disinformation.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean when I talk about like a logic correction instead of saying what you're this fact that you think is wrong, really looking at the logic of the messenger and why they would want to mislead you is can be really effective in making someone decide for themselves that they don't trust what they're seeing.
Thank you. Fantastic. And this question for you, which is, what is the most effective way to share correct voting information in North Carolina? Where should people be sharing? Where should they be going?
Well, just as Melissa was saying, we try as much as possible to have folks share directly from the State Board of Elections and their county boards of elections. We are lucky in North Carolina. We have an excellent State Board of Elections website that has some, really key pages for folks. And they even have a special voter ID page, bringitnc.com. And so we are really encouraging folks to go to those sites. We also have two in-state websites, ncvoterguide.org and ncvoter.org, both of which use information that is reliably sourced directly from the county and state boards to educate voters. So those are all really strong sources and also have accompanying social media.
I'd like to ask a follow-up on that because I think there has been a lot of news and reporting over the last few years of elections officials who have resigned or left their job because of the challenges that they face. And there's concern that those positions may be replaced by more partisan individuals. How can we be sure that there isn't a partisan, problem within the elections officials? And is it still the right move to rely on county and state elections officials?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, we have talked to and interacted with dozens of election officials around the state, and they are dedicated, nonpartisan public servants. And one thing we've also seen is that there really hasn't been a wave of more partisan folks joining sort of the full-time staff of those county boards of elections. And that's really where that key information is coming from. Now, we do have some concerns about some of the folks who may be signed up to be poll workers or partisan poll observers this cycle. And so we really encourage folks to, if they're hearing information that doesn't sound right at their polling place, the first thing that we recommend that they do is sort of step away from the polling place and call our 888 Our Vote hotline. That's the best place to get completely nonpartisan, confidential information about what you're hearing and get accurate response to your question. And then if you need to talk to someone who knows better what they're talking about, to really insist on talking to the precinct judge. These are more higher trained staff at those polling places who can often help correct issues right on the spot. And then from there, we really recommend going to the County Board of Elections themselves. The staff at the County Board of Elections are experts, and they are committed to ensuring that every voter can access the vote. And so we recommend going straight to them if you're having an issue with a poll worker or a poll monitor.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and I think this one goes to David as well, which is one of our attendees asks about in a post-election, there may be denial by candidates of things they have said or done and may claim that AI has generated a public statement. And I think the person writes in that this is sometimes called the liar's dividend or something similar. As an expert in the field, do you have recommendations on what we can do now during or after that potential use of blaming AI technology as a way of covering up for things that actually happened?
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a problem that has a new technological lens to it, but of course, it's time immemorial. I mean, you could just turn on the news media today and someone say, "I never said that." Yes, you did. Really? Prove it. Show me the transcript. show them a transcript. That doesn't sound right, right? So I do want to make clear that on some level, this is not new. But you're exactly right. I mean, this is a new vector for people to say, it wasn't me, it was the algorithm. We've seen this happen. I mean, it's also happened in the reverse, individuals not believing something they're seeing in front of them because they've had this consistent, steady diet of some of these concerns or someone telling them. I think, look, as individuals, this is where our institutions come in. This is where, we have brave men, women in journalism, folks that are helping to hold power to account, to create authoritative facts. We have lots of nonprofits and organizations that are working to help debunk on both sides when people are saying that something never happened when it did, and likewise. And so, in other words, my non-technical solution is I don't think there's a technical solution for this one here. This is going to involve all the elements that we've heard about on discussions like these about trying to bring the truth out. And yes, there will be technical components that can help, right? Where we can yes, someone can deploy a tool and they exist to help authenticate veracity of a particular video. We talked earlier in the session about being able to run it through some of these forensic tools to see if it shows a probability of AI generation. And if that shows 0 across the board for multiple tools, that helps, but people still have to believe it. And so at the end of the day, I think we really have to use all of our tools of civic trust here to apply that appropriate skepticism and to hold power to account.
Well, thanks for that. And I think we'll wrap here with that great call to action on building civic trust. And I hope that over the course of our time today, folks were able to learn some of the tools to do that civic trust and to avoid some of the pitfalls that are ahead of us. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. We deeply appreciate your expertise and joining us. And thank you very much to folks who attended today. And thanks for being part of the movement to protect voters in this and future elections. Thanks and good afternoon.